I entered to this site of horror that can never leave my brain.
One thing I could never understand when I first arrived is that the diners wanted everything at the same time.
We like everything on the table at the same time. I think it's a very Arab, Asian influence of that's how our culture is, that your table should always be full.
With the evolution of dining, how proud are you of the UAE?
This makes me so happy. I'm a cheerleader. I used to travel and meet these international diners and tell them, oh, you should come to Dubai. We have this amazing experiences. People didn't believe me.
For the first time ever, the Chef JKP Podcast is going live. We're going to be at Time Out Market Dubai as we bring the heat with unfiltered, exclusive conversations featuring some of the biggest names in hospitality. Mark your calendars. April 13th, 20th and 27th for 3 unforgettable nights of behind-the-scenes stories, insider secrets and culinary revelations. Want in? We are giving away tickets. All you have to do is follow both Instagram accounts and keep your eyes peeled for your shot at winning a pair. Don't just listen, be part of the experience. As you know, here on the Chef JKP Podcast, we love to tell stories and listen to the people who have made their mark on the world of gastronomy. Now, get ready, because in this episode, we are about to take you inside the mind of a true storyteller. We've talked to chefs, restaurateurs, hospitality heavyweights. But today, we are diving into the world of food writing. And trust me, there's a lot more to it than just eating at fancy restaurants and typing a review. On the podcast this week, we are joined by the brilliant Pallavi Sangtani, an incredible food and travel writer based right here in Dubai. And when I say she knows food, I mean she knows food. From the glitz and glam of high-end dining to soulful, no-frills magic of street food. She's covered it all. Born and raised in Dubai, Pallavi has witnessed firsthand the dramatic evolution of the city's food scene, from shawarma stands to Michelin stars. She's written for some of the biggest publications in the world and dined at the most exclusive tables, as well as uncovered hidden gems that most people would walk right past. But here's the thing about being a food writer. It isn't just about stuffing your face, scribbling a few words down. It's about telling a story, capturing an experience, helping the reader taste the food through the page. And that is a serious skill. So, how do you build a career as a top-tier food writer? What goes on behind the scenes of crafting a perfect review? And how do you balance fine dining with street food at the same level of respect and passion? Get ready, because Pallavi is about to take us inside the world of professional food writing. Listen up for a story about, do you know what? There are loads of stories. Time to rock and roll.
Hi, I'm Pallavi Sangtani, freelance food and travel writer. If you like the podcast, which I know you do, make sure to follow, share, and subscribe.
So Pallavi, welcome to the podcast. It's absolutely amazing to have you in. As always, please tell me your first or favorite childhood food memory.
Well, thank you for having me on, finally. Chef Himanshu had mentioned on your podcast that this is like the F&B version of Coffee with Karan in India. He's right, it is. I feel so honored to be here. Thank you. My first memory with food is I was 10 years old and I had my first taste of biryani. So I'm born and raised in Dubai. My dad got me this biryani from this place called Culinary in Dera, Naif. and I still eat that biryani every weekend.
Wow.
That biryani was a burst of flavors, a kind of nostalgia that I never knew existed. Because at that point, it was like, this tastes so familiar. And I remember it years later, and I eat it years later. But at that point, it was, oh my God, this is amazing. There's so much flavor. The mutton is tender. There's a potato in the biryani, which is the way they make it. And through the years, I learned, that's the Sindhi biryani, which is my family's history. They moved from Pakistan to India. And so this was our roots on a plate. It was Sindhi biryani on a plate. And that is my first memory. And it just sort of, there are add-ons to your memory. It's like, okay, this was the core memory. And then every single time I had it or made other people have the same biryani, this memory is just grown and grown. And now it's literally a weekly part of my life.
So every
week,
you're there making sure.
Yeah, it's a 14 dirham plate of biryani.
No.
It used to be 10. And when you go in, you'll find it's not a fancy place, right? But it's at the core of this is good tasting food. It's wholesome food. It's comforting food. I actually went with Payman Al-Avadi to this place for the Dubai Classics episode as well.
Wow. And what did he say?
He loved it, but he's been there before because he's a Dubai kid, right? So he's tried these places that have made up our childhood. And so that's my first core memory of eating from a restaurant, right? From outside.
So let's say I've never had it before, okay? What are the sort of flavors that are going to burst through this biryani?
So there's spices, obviously, but they're integrated into the way they cook the biryani is that the masala and the rice is cooked together, and then there's the white rice separately. So the masala and the rice is all the spices are slow cooked together into the mutton. They put a potato in because that's the recipe for a Sindhi biryani. There's mutton and potato.
Right.
Historically, it was done because to keep so much meat in one plate would be expensive. So they put potato for more.
Oh, okay.
Adding that sort of wholesomeness without the cost associated with the meat that goes on the plate. So it's potato, mutton, spices, rice, slow cooked together. And that's the masala.
Right.
And then they mix it with the white rice. But there's a trick. You either ask them for a double masala or a full masala biryani.
Okay, tell me the difference.
So the double masala it's half rice, half masala together. So it's slightly less spicy at the end of it. And then there's the basic version, which is one layer of masala and then 3 portions of biryani. So it's like 3-1. And then the full masala is no plain white rice. It's just full.
Oh.
Bang on.
Right.
Head of spices, full force. You will feel it. Like, I think people always start sweating at the end of it.
But is it but also with the spices, I'm interested to know, are you talking about hot spice? Not chili.
No, it's like the Pakistani and Indian spices of garam masala. So you mix your cumin, your cinnamon, your star anise. It's those masalas together.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds amazing. And how big is this plate for 14 dirhams?
It's like a good mound.
Okay.
A normal person would eat half to 3/4 of it. A hungry person would eat full.
Okay.
Yeah, so we usually have
I'm probably going to go there after this.
Let's go.
But it's really good.
Sunday afternoon, that's biryani
sounds
day.
Amazing. But then you said, you were born and raised here in Dubai.
Yes.
So apart from biryani, what were the types of foods that you would tend towards or have as a teenager? Because I imagine that the food scene back then is very different to now.
Yes, and there's still a lot of places that have sort of survived the ages and are still here and kicking. But I was a very adventurous food eater because of my dad. He has been, I think, the biggest sort of influence in the way I think of food is influenced very greatly by him. So I remember him feeding me brain masala.
Brain masala?
Yeah, like goat brain masala. And it was, at that point...
How old were you?
I think 12, 13. yeah. He was very oh, you have to try this. This is a very normal Pakistani dish.
Right.
And I was like, but you're making me eat brains. And his answer was, yes, because you're going to get brainier with this.
Right. Very, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
That was I was very adventurous, and I think that sort of came through now as an adult as well. It's influenced a lot of my life, and as you know, and so I used to eat everything from mandi to brains to home cooked meals, because Friday, back then Friday was a holiday, right? It was the weekend. And so my entire family would be in the kitchen on Friday afternoon cooking together. It was chaos, but we loved it. And we would all have some part in making the meal for that day. So it would be, okay, my mom's cooking, my dad's cooking, my brother and I are helping with, we'll make the little yogurt raita on the side, or we'll make something sweet on the side. And so it was always a family affair to cook, right? So it wasn't just about going out or eating out. It was about food as a whole.
And when you're saying about the family, was it directly just your mum and dad and your brother, or was it extended family as well? Would they come over and get involved?
No, because they moved here like 45 years ago. My dad has been here since his teens.
Wow,
yeah,
amazing.
And he's lived his entire life, worked here, retired here. It's amazing. So it was a nuclear family. It was just 4 of us. But my dad loves to cook.
Really?
And he's retired now. His favorite hobby is trying new recipes. And it's amazing.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. Like a lot of people have tried his like halim that he cooks. Panchali loves it. Every time I make it, she's like, where's my box? So that started very, very early on because he moved from New Delhi.
Right.
And New Delhi is core foodie, like very hardcore foodie place with Chandni Chowk and all these chaats and street food. And he came from that, and he, I think, sort of craved that when he was here. So he went to find the places that would give him a taste of home or adventure. And so he found the place that would serve the best chaat in Dubai.
Right.
Or the best snacks from like dabeli, which are North Indian snacks, or the bread pakoda, which is a very Delhi snack. And so all these places became a part of my childhood growing up, is the places in Bardubai and MENA Bazaar that are very old school, been around for decades, tiny one-shutter shops that serve, 5 items or whatever, 10 items.
I think it's amazing. And your friends, would you take your friends to these places as well?
I have actually. My friends, I've done a tour with my friends. We have multiple food groups. So we did a Shawarma Chronicles tour, which went starting from New Dubai to Old Dubai to all the shawarma places. And I've done a chart tour with my friends where I had 13 places on the list and people tapped out at 9.
Whoa.
And this is not like a paid tour or anything. It's just for fun.
Right.
But it was about, okay, these are the different snacks from 4 parts of India. I was inspired by, obviously, Himanshu and Tresson, the way they do their journey, Tresson Studio. But it was, okay, these are the snacks from North India. These are the snacks from West India. These are the snacks from East India. These are the snacks from South India. And we had like 13 places on the list where I took them around walking in Karama and MENA Bazaar.
Oh my God, I love it.
For all these snacks.
And how long does it take to do that little tour?
We were out for, I think, 4 hours.
Oh my word.
It was just constant eating. It was just constant eating.
But you were walking, right? You're walking around as well, right?
So you're walking around, but you're just
burning it off.
I mean, you know how much like spice goes into those chats and stuff.
God. Yeah.
People were, it was hard. It was hard for some of them to get through. So we stopped. Like we had a hard stop at stop 9. Like nobody could go beyond that.
But it sounds amazing.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. But we do that often.
So then, during your sort of upper teenage years, did you decide to sort of go into food, or what was your sort of educational path? Because obviously your dad was very influential with all of the food, the cooking and that sort of thing. But what were you into?
I was actually a writer. I even studied journalism and media and communications. So I used to write and read a lot. A lot of my books revolved around food. And so much like the books you have here. I read a lot of them growing up, and I used to watch cooking shows, which I think anybody who's into food, the first memory of a cooking show is MasterChef Australia. And so we had that, but we also had the local version of the Food Network called Fatafeet, which I think Mohammed Urfali has been on for a while as well. So Fatafeet, MasterChef Australia, these shows were Fatafeet was more very cooking oriented as a show. When you watch these things growing up, you're just like, oh, this is so cool. I've never seen this ingredient. I've never heard of this dish, or what does this do? What'll happen if you do this technique? And it was pretty cool learning all of that growing up. I never got into formal culinary education. It was my dream to go because on Fatafeet, there was a chocolatier, Jacques Torres, and he was called Mr. Chocolate, and I thought he was the coolest man on the planet, of course. Actually, Chef Sahar and I have spoken about him. It's just core, nostalgia, watching him make those chocolate sculptures. It's amazing. So he was the dean of the Culinary Institute in New York.
Whoa.
So my dream was, I need to go to pastry school under Jacques Torres. But it never sort of worked out. Maybe at some point in my life, I will still go to culinary school. It's the dream. But yeah, it was more writing, reading, watching based education related to food as opposed to formal education.
But you were basically a proper foodie.
Yes.
From a very young age.
Yes, because it wasn't, at that time, there were no tags, right? It wasn't a foodie tag. It was just, it comes from family.
Yes.
And that hospitality always existed in my family because they come from Delhi. My mom's from Rajasthan. So the sense of hospitality and feeding and, the Indian nature of we need to feed you, that was always sort of inbuilt.
So then you said you studied journalism.
Yes.
Where did you study that?
In Dubai, actually. I went to Middlesex University. In the UK university in Dubai.
And what sort of things were you able to pick up from that? Was it just because you said you were writing before?
Yes.
But when you do a journalism degree, what are the key sort of elements that you pick up along the way?
Attention to detail. I think that's the key. Structure, organization, and a little bit of creativity. I don't think I'm a very creative person. I think I come down to a very objective, strategic person. But that's also because my creativity never evolved much beyond, right? So I will get into my career a little bit, but I think you learn mainly for me, it was organization, structure, and attention to detail that I took away from my journalism degree. And it was interesting to see two sides of the story, because in our journalism courses, we always were shown how media impacts the outcome and the narrative. And so early on, I learned about there's never just one side.
Right.
It's always two sides to the coin. It's always two sides to the story. And the way they taught us was very interesting, but I won't get into that.
No, but I think that's also quite amazing because, with what you do now, with the writing that you do and the talking to the chefs, you see those two sides of the coin, right?
Yes.
And especially with the awards, let's say, because everybody will have an opinion.
100%.
The chefs will have a very strong opinion.
Of course.
The people giving the awards, of course, have an opinion. So I think it's also a great way to sort of get into that story. But then if I get into your early career, you're involved with, technology and digital transformation. So what were you doing within those realms that included food and beverage?
So this will be a little bit of a longer segment because I actually started with events in Dubai. When I was 16, I started working at events because here we couldn't go work officially at a company,
right,
but we could volunteer or work by the hour at events.
Okay.
Under the age of 20.
Sure.
Yeah. So I started working with events like Taste of Dubai, festival, early days.
Nice.
And that was my first memory of working in a kitchen, because I was handling the celebrity chef cooking theater, the one that they do the master classes at. So I obviously got to work with some amazing chefs. I met Nick and Scott back then. I still have that photo, and every time I share it, it's like, we looked like such babies, because I was like 19 or something,
Right.
and this is a long time ago. So and Chef Vineet Bhatia, Richard Sandoval, Reza Mohammed from Food Network. So I got to work with a lot of these chefs. Now, my first memory of working in a kitchen was that, and I think that's why I never got into a kitchen.
Please tell me more.
I will tell you the exact moment where I decided I will not do culinary school at this given point in life till I have more patience.
Right.
So this is the masterclass theatre, which means you're prepping for 12 students to have their own mise en place.
Right.
Everything's prepared. The chef comes at the stage. He will guide the participants through the whole cooking process.
So he will do the demo, essentially,
Exactly,
right?
and they will cook. So
Right.
you need the ingredients for both.
Okay.
And then we have students from culinary school
Yeah.
who are helping us prep in the back kitchen. But if you know the setup, it's a makeshift kitchen, right?
Oh, yes.
It's not a full-fledged kitchen. And the equipment in the kitchen is obviously not of a full-fledged, official, commercial kitchen. So I was reporting into the person who was managing all of these sort of cooking theaters, and I get a call at 7 a.m. On day 2 saying, Pallavi, you need to get here now. Okay, like, cool. So I got up, got dressed, ran, got there. This was, I think, 2.5 hours before the doors officially opened.
Right.
And I entered to the site of horrors that can never leave my brain. So we had ingredients from the previous night, which was fresh prawns left in the bottom of the refrigerator,
Right.
not in the freezer.
Right.
The juices had leaked out
Oh.
all over the kitchen floor. And when I entered there, sorry, I'm laughing because that I can visualize it, is because we're in the garden area, right? So there's mosquitoes and flies and bugs hovering above in the whole kitchen.
Oh, my God.
I think every part of me died that moment.
Yeah.
And can you imagine?
And the smell.
I think the smell was the least of my worries, right? It was the hygiene element of it.
Yeah.
Because I had chefs coming in, celebrity chefs coming in 2 hours, and the prep team coming in 1 hour. We got on our hands and knees, sanitized, wiped, mopped, opened it up from all sides
my
to
God.
let everything out,
Yeah.
re-sanitized, re-mopped, re-sanitized. I think we did that 4 times to get the stickiness to go away, obviously through the ingredients that were spoiled. And that still, my heart still races when I think about that
That
day.
sounds like trauma.
It was,
You know?
it was. And this is why I think that when I was like, I don't want to go to culinary school. I don't want to have to deal with this. It was horrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then was it a success?
It was, yeah. We were all ready, prepped, everything. We did this 4 times. We went in the cycle. Everything was washed. We got the team. When the event team arrived, obviously we asked for more help. They came, helped us sort of clean everything. But yeah, it was very,
Wow.
my manager and I were, okay, we can do this.
Okay.
Yes, we'll get through it. So we did. It was very, very clean by the time the team and chefs arrived. So
then these events, they helped you along the way. Obviously not to get into the kitchen.
yeah, but from a learning perspective, for sure.
From a learning
so I had a Taste of
perspective.
Dubai for a few years,
Okay.
Winter Festival for a few years. It was
Yeah.
always with the celebrity chef kitchens. I enjoyed interacting with chefs early on as
Right.
well, right? So it was fun, and it was a great learning experience. That was from the age of 16. And then I got into my first full-time job. That was in a food tech company, actually, in Zomato.
Oh, okay.
So I was one of the first 10 employees in the UAE.
But just to put into context, that was one of the biggest food platforms there is.
At that point,
At
no.
that time,
It wasn't.
No?
It was getting there. I still remember the office was tiny. It was 2 tables in Media City. The co-founder interviewed me himself Pankaj Chadda, amazing man. And they were just setting up in the UAE and trying to get a footprint. So it wasn't big in Dubai. It was
what
big in
year
India.
was that?
2012, 2013. Okay. Yeah, this was when they launched in September 2012. I joined them in December 2012. Yeah. So it was early days.
Because so back in when I was exec chef a few years ago, 2017, 2018, they were monstrous.
Yes.
I mean, they were.
So
really
I left
big.
in 2017.
So tell me what happened during that time from being one of the first employees. How did you begin to sort of get the restaurants on board, work with the tech, all of that kind of technical stuff?
So I did marketing and communications, offset of the media studies that I had done. But I started as a content analyst. I did HR for a year. But this is the thing. When you're in a startup, you sort of put your fingers in all the different little pies that are there. And that is I think that was one of the biggest learning experiences ever, because you're going hands-on into work. It's not textbook based. So you're thrown into these scenarios where you have to learn, right? And so I think there was a point where my boss actually told me, oh, we're just going to throw you into the deep end and you have to figure out how to swim, right? And that is what it was, constantly, every day, whether it was interacting with restaurants, whether it was trying to build community engagement, whether it was trying to get the content on the platform to be accurate and up to date, whether it was recruiting the team, because I did that for a year. Every element of it was a learning experience. And that was a high growth phase, right? So I got to sort of touch upon multiple different, whether it was customers, businesses, restaurants, users, people who wrote reviews on the platform back then. And there was learning from each one of them. So it was amazing.
So the first year, what were you doing? So you were content. Second year, HR.
Yeah.
Third year.
Then I did community engagement, marketing, PR, and comms.
Okay.
So I built the community.
When you got into the PR and comms side of things, I'm really interested in that, because I remember when Zomato did come out, people would review and really review and take the photos and all of that kind of stuff. And, I remember some of the time you saw a lot of people, they were taking these reviews extremely seriously, because back then, let's not forget, there was no sort of review sites, there was no Michelin guide, and there were no guides at all. So it was kind of like you had the what's-ons and the timeouts and that sort of thing, but it was kind of like Zomato was the guide here, because people would look at the ratings and then they would properly read the reviews. Yep. How were you sort of able to instill all of that and work it into the platform?
So that was the community engagement part of it. I built a community engagement program where we did Zomato meetups. So the one point that I learned during that period was that anything online needs to be complemented by something offline. It has to be an omni-channel touch point. You can show people how much ever you want from a digital perspective, but if it's not impacting them in the real life in some manner, it's not going to get you the results. So we started doing these meetups where if you're a contributing reviewer, we'll invite you to, one of our partner restaurants. And usually we used to pay the restaurant for this.
Okay.
Saying, okay, we're going to host 10 people at your restaurant. And it was just a way to engage with the community that was contributing to our platform. And that sort of blew up. Because if you look up Zomato meetups hashtag on Instagram, I think you'll still find posts from back then when we were doing that very heavily. At some point, I was doing 3 meetups a week, hosting 50 different people, 3 different restaurants. And it was one to get feedback from the users directly.
Right.
It's like having a focus group, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing it in a more fun setting. And that ultimately resulted in the number of reviews that people posted increasing, because they were sort of getting this validation or gratification out of it. Because there are people who used to write reviews. They used to see people posting on Instagram about, I got invited to a Zomato meetup. And then more people started posting. And then more people started writing reviews. So that sort of blew up where it became, I really want to write reviews because this sounds so cool that I want to go to this meetup. And people used to message me going, oh, can I get invited to a meetup because I've been writing for so long? I'm like, no, we're looking at, quality, contributions and engagement, etc., to be able to come up with the right set of people to invite to each of these things. But that, I think, in the earliest sense was influencer marketing is what they call it now, right? Yes. But at that point, it was not a thing.
Can I just ask, so because I think this is a big point because it led onto bigger things. Now, you as the head of that, obviously there would have been reviews which were negative.
Yes.
Right? And did those negative reviews get you into trouble with the specific venues?
Many times. There are many stories that I'm unable to share. People know. There are people who've been involved in this, that they know the sort of negative review impact that has happened. People have come up and spoken to the director, the founder, in fact, saying, oh, this negative review is false and you need to take it down and your platform is illegitimate. How could you do this? There's been a lot. And then we used to get emails, I think, easily twice, thrice a day from restaurants saying, I have this negative review, I would like you to remove it because it's not legit.
And did you have to remove it?
No.
So you kept it on there?
Yes. I mean, it's authenticity, right? There were also checks, like the same way Google does checks, if there's a spam, if there's nothing else written but just a bad rating, and the same sort of algorithms that every other tech platform used to moderate reviews. So we did have review moderation. But it wasn't I'm going to remove it if you ask me to remove it.
And did any of the team within Zomato, did you also go to these restaurants just to double check if these claims were true or false?
It didn't have to be, right? Because at the end of the day, your experience could be very different from my experience at the same restaurant, and food is subjective.
Yes.
So both of those reasons, we weren't the police, right? We weren't policing restaurants to say, is this review legitimate? Should I have to remove it because I need to double check if it is legitimate? I think at some point it moved to people misusing that power behind the keyboard. And that did happen. And you saw that sort of go down, right?
Okay.
So it did happen where we used to get, we would be able to validate that it was incorrectly added or unjustified additions to the platform. And then, yes, there was a moderation process involved. But we wouldn't validate that. It wasn't our job to go police the restaurants on whether or not you gave this experience to a user.
And did you ever find people who were just writing negative reviews for the sake of writing negative reviews? Would you ban those on the platform?
No, would you ban those on Instagram?
Well, yeah, some people may, right? I mean, that depends who it is.
But they exist, right?
Yes.
So you cannot have the good without the bad.
Right.
It's the same. It's a balance.
Because, but also, Zomato became such a massive platform because also if you wanted to check out anybody's menus,
yes,
you could even see it on there.
I think that was the biggest USP or the key point that Zomato had in the benefit is because they had a data collection team that used to go out on foot every nook and alley, collecting menus and photos. So it wasn't based on some external platform that was telling you these restaurants exist. It was people going down. All of us have done it. All of us who have ever been involved in Zomato early days, we used to have data collection drives.
Right.
Where all across Dubai, we've done it in like 40 degrees in the summer with the founder. So it was a very dedicated... The founder used to come with us, yes. So it was a very dedicated team of, you know what, we want to be the one-stop guide. Because at that point, it wasn't about, booking tables or ordering food. We didn't do any of those things early on, right? It was after the delivery and the dine-out started. But back then, it was purely about being the ultimate data guide to restaurants in Dubai, not from a subjective perspective, but from an informational and objective perspective. This is the menu, these are the photos, this is the cost for two, this is their opening times, this is where they're located. And that could only be possible if somebody was on foot validating these things. So they have full-time data collection teams that do this.
That's a lot of work as well, I can imagine.
It is. But we started with 3,000 restaurants.
3,000?
Yeah, now we're at 13.
Did you say started?
Yeah, so I think 2,500 or 3,000 was the initial list of restaurants we had on the platform back in 2012, 2013.
Right.
And I think the last count that I heard from my friends over at Zomato was somewhere between 13 to 14,000 in Dubai.
That's incredible. That's a lot of work. But then in 2017, you left, and where did you decide to go?
I went to Harvard to do my master's in the US, and then I was doing that part-time. I spent some time on campus. I spent some time in Dubai, did a few projects in between that were associated with cafes. And because, again, I was always interested in F&B. So I worked with a couple of brands where I did branding and e-commerce and digital and marketing and comm side of things.
Tell me about the food in the US.
They don't know Indian food. The food in
because
the US.
It must have been so different, right?
It was, but it was fun. I was till I think when I started going to the US, I went 3 years in a row because I was doing on and off campus. Boston was good for a few things. Like, you had the lobster roll, you had the clam chowder, and the seafood in general, because of the main sort of, you get the amazing seafood from the main coast. The oysters were amazing. But it sort of ended there.
Right.
Boston is not, I would say, a food city. There are some nice restaurants by Chef Jamie Bissonnette. He has a few of them there. But I don't think they're a massively advanced food city. So it was more of a student sort of eating.
And did you cook for yourself? Did you introduce some of the flavors to your friends on campus?
Yes, very much. So my flatmate and I used to cook a lot. I think 4 times a week, easy. So what I did discover there was the Korean ingredients, and that was awesome.
Wow!
Because they have the best supermarkets with Korean ingredients.
Okay.
Yes, it was awesome. So we started working with those, making that, and then we had an Indian supermarket, so we used to get all the Indian ingredients to make Indian food, which we used to invite our friends over for. But yeah, it was a lot of cooking, more student-based approach to eating.
Yes.
And like there was I think two fine dining restaurants that I went to in Boston. It's not a massive food city, but what I did do was go to New York every few weeks and save up to go eat at all the nice restaurants in New York City. I ate at most of the 3 Michelin starred, except one, just on principle. I didn't want to go there.
Okay, so which is, from all of the 3 stars that you ate or experienced in New York, which is the one that truly stays in your mind?
2, actually. One is Chef's Table at Brooklyn Fair, back when Chef Cesar Ramirez was there. It's some of the best food in the US as a whole. Just technique, flavors, layers in tiny little tarts. You just get 5 different layers of flavor. It's amazing. And it was perfectly executed food. So best food, service is questionable a little bit. But I just don't think it's a comfortable level of service. And that brings me to my second restaurant that I love going back to. It's not innovative much. It's not very innovative, but it's comfortable in the sense that you know exactly what you're going to get at Per Se by Thomas Keller.
Right.
I go there every time. My graduation meal was at Per Se because
oh my God.
I just think that sometimes you don't want innovation, sometimes you don't want experimentation, sometimes you just want to be spoiled rotten. And they're always going to do that. From the time you step into, I think the first time I stepped into Per Se, I was in jeans and a t-shirt and I came with my luggage because I was going straight to the airport. And I walked in and said, I have 2 hours, guys. Can we do this? And they still made me feel amazing. They took care of us. They spoiled us. The manager came and spoke. And I was a nobody at this point, right? I'm a nobody in New York. Why does he have to do that? It was just a very engaged level of service. And ever since then, every time I've gone back, it's always been an engaged level of service, right? So that sort of feeling of being taken care of is for me amazing. And I like to go back to that whenever I'm in New York.
And is that more so, but the food at the same time is also executed at the highest possible level, right?
Yes. It's you know what you're gonna get on the plate is gonna taste good. That's it. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, this blew my mind, it's the best dish of my life, but it was perfectly executed, and that's why they've had 3 Michelin stars for 15 years. And then there's a third restaurant, which now they've started coming up the 50 best list, is Atomix. I went, I think, back in 2018, 2019, when they were very new. I was, I think, a year in or something that I went, tried them out. And that was very interesting to me, again, because I told you, US has a lot of Korean flavors that supermarkets, restaurants, and I did not know what I was walking into, right? It's a 14-seater chef's table, Korean tasting menu. Had never done that in my life. I've never been to Korea. But what they brought to the plate was not just Korean food, but it was inspiration plus, everything that I've learned from their travels. So there was execution, but there was that sense of hospitality and community that comes from, Korean food, which was, for me, amazingly executed. And now I love it that they're getting so much recognition for what they're doing, because they've been doing this for 5 years, 6 years.
But I think that's incredible. So then after your degree and during your time at Zomato, were you still writing?
Occasionally, yes.
Was it still in the back of your mind, or were you really wanting to get into that sort of space?
I was occasionally still writing. So I started writing when I was 16. My first short story was published in Young Times magazine, which was when I was a teenager. And so I continued writing, but very sporadically. It wasn't a dedicated approach to, I'm going to do 6 articles every month or whatever, right? It was more about wherever I can, whenever I can, I will do it.
So, but when did you seriously start to get into the high-end writing space when it comes to food, gastronomy, and travel?
I think I got into the high-end dining space in a different manner and the writing space in a different manner. So my first Michelin star experience was at Dinner by Heston in London. Now, I think 11 years ago. And that was
your first.
That was my first ever Michelin star meal. You'd never forget your first.
Who did you go with?
I went with my friend who was studying in the UK at the given point. But obviously, I was very young. I couldn't afford it. I was watching Heston on TV, reading books, and very excited about it. So my brother, who's the other influence in my food life, he gifted me a lunch at Dinner by Heston, because he was working, he was earning, so he could afford to give his little sister a little bit, of an experience. So I was traveling to London to meet my friend, and he's like, okay, here's your gift. You're going to go for lunch to Dinner by Heston. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying no to that. Thank you very much. So we booked a lunch, and I remember walking into the Mandarin in Knightsbridge and feeling like, where have I come, right? This was over the top opulence at that point for me.
It's an incredible place.
It is, right? And the grandeur it hits you when you're walking in, like from the entrance.
Yeah.
And then we sat down. This was, I think, the year 2 of their whole nitrogen meat fruit bit, where they had just started doing this. And we had the lunch menu, which was starting with the meat fruit. I still remember I had a chop. I can't say it. I had a meat dish. I had a meat dish, and then I had a tipsy cake to end. Now, when I took that first bite of the meat fruit, was this overwhelming realization, and when you have epiphanic moments, that food is so much more than I ever thought it could be, and that is what got me into it. It was, this looks like a mandarin, but it tastes not like a mandarin. This is amazing. And what? So that was the sort of first trigger of getting into fine dining. Obviously, I was still young, working, couldn't afford to do this. So I used to save for the 6 months, 1 year, so that I could, when I'm traveling, I could go eat at one amazing fine dining restaurant. And that's how I started doing it 11 years ago. When I started first writing about it, I was writing a blog back when blogging was not very butcherized and popularized. But then I couldn't keep it going because of work and commitments and etc. So I just moved to wherever I could write articles. So I was always into the writing element of it.
Right.
It just changed phases through the years. It's come out on different channels through the years.
But when did it really sort of begin to step up and get serious?
That's a good question. I'm thinking when I started the blog, because I was very active in writing for the first sort of 3 years. And then it sort of dwindled back down. And then it came back up again 2019, 20.
Okay.
So it was like, it's like a wave.
Yeah. Because when I was talking to Sarah Headley-Heimers, she mentions you. She says that, that some of the things that you're writing about and what you're doing, is absolutely phenomenal. But I want to sort of understand, as somebody who is into the world of food, specifically from a sort of journalistic perspective, a writing perspective. It sounds like an obvious question, but why is it so important to travel?
How will you ever learn? I don't think if I had not traveled, I would have 90% of the experiences or understanding that I have today. And I think that the thing that keeps me still involved in food is the fact that I can never know everything. There is so much to learn. It is so exciting. The first time that I had ants, the first time that I had mealworms, both of which was in Denmark, by the way. And, when you're interacting with these ingredients, these flavors, these techniques, every step is a learning of what food can be, but also you take that into saying, oh my God, you did this to an apple over a 90-day period, and how did you get this result? And it makes you more analytical and more, there's research involved. And because food is not just about what comes on your plate, right? It's about all the learnings that come from what's gone into making it and all the flavors and nostalgia that come out of it, and what is it meant to evoke for you. So I think if you don't travel, you don't get those experiences or learnings, because it's like staying in a little bubble, right? You know what you know, and that's all it's going to be, unless you step out of the comfort zone and say, I'm going to be trying this, or I will go to this restaurant, or I will try this ingredient. It doesn't have to be a fine dining restaurant, because I do street food as much as I do fine dining, right? More so, actually. You don't go to a 3 Michelin star restaurant every week, but I do eat biryani every week, right? It comes back to that. So it's not just about, you need to go eat this fancy meal. No, it's just about being open to the experience of learning from food that you will not get in this little bubble that you're in.
But I also want to understand there's this sort of love-hate relationship, right, with journalists, food writers, and chefs or restaurateurs, because you cannot have one without the other.
Yes.
Right. And you've seen, recently I've read a lot about some certain chefs who are coming out saying how much they hate the press, how much they don't like awards, this, that, and the other. But at the same time, on the flip side of that, if you didn't have these journalists and people like yourself going to the restaurants, traveling, having those experiences, the world wouldn't necessarily know. Right?
Right. And there's pros and cons to everything. I think that is what it ultimately comes down to. If people are going to be happy about something, there are going to be people who are going to be upset with it or disappointed with it or angry at it. And that's inevitable, right? Like we spoke about the reviews earlier. You're going to have positive, but you will have the negative. Tell me one restaurant that does not have a single negative review. I don't think that exists. Tell me a single business that does not have a negative review, right? I work in a home services business and indoor environmental quality services business, and we have the highest rating in the category. However, we still do get bad reviews.
Right.
So that's inevitable. You're going to get the bad with the good, and you just have to deal with that. Now, whether you deal with it extremely is dependent on the individual who is coming out and saying it. I think a lot of us like to support the industry, and that's why we like to write about it, right? It's not necessarily a criticism of the industry, but it is an involvement and level of support that we would like to give to the industry because we appreciate it and respect it, and it has given us so much in terms of experiences, in terms of learnings, in terms of memorable dining, right? So while there are chefs, I think, who are always going to be upset with the PR versus the journalist versus the chefs, that's going to be there forever.
The other thing I wanted to ask you also, because you were born here, you understand the landscape of food much better than most people here, I would say. Now, if we take from the years of 2017 to 2022, before these huge awards were coming in, these global awards, how would you describe the culinary landscape here?
I think it was very much based on where would you go to be seen. And that's how a lot of these places became popular, or the hotspot hangouts,
Right.
And it was less about the food, but it's also due to another restriction that I think chefs had in their creativity. As you know, you couldn't own your full business in UAE till a few years ago. It was, I think, 6 years ago when they changed that, right? I think when that shift happened from a law perspective was, now you can own your full business, which means you can have full creative control over what you're doing and what your output is and what you put into it and what you actually want to make of this business. That's when you started seeing this sort of personality of chefs coming out on the plate. But until then, it was what is going to run, what is mass popular. Obviously, early days, any of these restaurants that now have high level of accolades, Himanshu would have told you, early days to get the idea of Tres and Studio out was difficult because people were not ready for it. People didn't understand it. I need to sit down for 3 hours for a tasting menu. And, the same thing, where I remember there was this restaurant, Enigma at Palazzo Versace, where Bjorn and Kike had done their little pop-ups. And again, people didn't get the concept because they were flocking to other places that were more popular, that were easier, more approachable for them. They still had the disposable income. They just didn't want to spend it on this experience because they didn't know. So I think multiple factors played in this transformation from what it was early 2017, 2018 to 21, 22. One is the legality change of chefs being able to own their restaurants, or anybody being able to own their business fully, which gave them a lot more creativity, or the idea of at least having a little more creativity than what they did before. And they just didn't have to make a successful business, but they could have, two parts to it. One was the creative outcome and one was the business side of it, right? Which a lot of restaurants are now doing to balance the P&L.
I mean, it's a huge amount to balance, I think.
Exactly. And there are some people who figured it out. And the other thing that obviously caused the transformation was all these guides coming in and validating this city as a space where you can have high gastronomic experiences or high level of gastronomic experiences. And those two together have now finally reached to a point where people take us seriously for food. But we've always had good food. It just didn't exist in fine dining restaurants. It existed in the back alleys of Karama and MENA Bazaar.
Oh, because I wanted to ask you, post, so 2022, you had the three heavy hitters came in all at the same time. Yep. Michelin, Gomelo, 50 Best. For you, as a food writer in that space, how did you see the change with the restaurants?
So year one, if you remember, it was still a lot of popular restaurants that were given accolades, right?
Yes.
And then you saw the shift in year two and the shift in year three, and you've seen the evolution. I think what those guides did were on multiple levels. One was they validated the region, saying, you know what, this is more than a pit stop between a flight to somewhere else, right? You get out and you go try these amazing experiences that the city has to offer. The second thing was it pushed chefs and teams to give and do better, right? To put that out on a plate. You're a chef, right? You would have seen that coming out from kitchens where pre-2022 and post-2022, the evolution of the kitchens themselves and what they put out and the experiences and the food and the level of food that they put out has massively transformed in the high-end kitchens.
And the business turnover.
Exactly. Three is it's created a level of education for the diners. People started understanding more about what these guides represent when they came in, right? People started searching. They saw media posting and writing about it. Okay, what is the 50 best? Okay, what is Michelin? I think most people knew. But then what is Gomeo, or what is the Best Chef Award? So it sort of led to more diner-based education, which I think was lacking for the longest time. And when I say diner-based education, it's a person who has disposable income who could go to these high-end experiences but hasn't, because they've been used to where they go and where they eat for the longest time. And now these sort of popularized guides put a new perspective in front of them of, oh, there's this other experience that would be amazing to try. And people started going and trying these experiences and learning more about, I have been spending on this, but then, there's this amazing dinner I can spend on that would give me so much more than I knew could come out on a plate. And it sort of transformed the understanding of the local diner. And then lastly, obviously getting in the international diners to come in, because there are Michelin star hunters, people who like to go to Michelin
big time
restaurants.
But
right?
what I wanted to also ask you is, there's a big push at the moment. All I'm hearing from different organizations, chefs, media, so on and so forth, is that there's a big fight between let's say timing of dining, as in like how long you want to stay at a restaurant, and also the big fight between a la carte and tasting menu, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a time and place for a tasting menu. I think there are some restaurants that are trying to be more approachable and accessible with a la carte menus, which I respect, because it's also easier to step into that. The clear example is Orfali. Orfali Bros gets 200 people coming in through the day, 12 noon to 12 midnight. It's approachable, and that's why it continues to be number one on the MENA's 50 best list, is because anybody can go at any time and have 3 dishes. Right? What if I don't want to have a full
or a
tasting?
burger?
Exactly. But, yeah. Mohammed knows this. Sorry, Mohammed, I still love your restaurant. And then versus when you're going for a tasting menu, you have to allocate that time, those 3 hours to go spend, eat there. And there is a time and place for both. I just think a la carte is more accessible and approachable. And it's always going to be. Right? Nobody's going to opt for going for 5 tasting menus in a week if you live somewhere. I would do it when I'm traveling, but I wouldn't do it when I'm living in a city. And then this brings me to my second part is, are your diners local or international? I think it's very important for a restaurant to have more local diners coming in consistently, so the down season of tourism does not impact them heavily on the P&L perspective.
Got you.
Right? And if you want that can only be met via a la carte. At least that's what I think.
No, absolutely. Because I'm just thinking, a lot of, there is a time and a place. And I think if it's a destination restaurant, let's say, if you're an international traveler, the tasting menus are fantastic. But if you're a local or you live in the city, you do want to have that a la carte. The other thing I think that's changed over a long period of time, and I blame Nick and Scott for this, is that when they first had Folly, what they did extremely well is that they had this beautiful menu with all small plates and large plates and things like that. And it was almost a tasting menu of sorts.
Yes.
Especially when they first launched. And I think, I'm talking about this region, a lot of people love to have sort of the sharing style or the family style on the plate. And that's why I just think it's very interesting, because we have so many international diners. They see what we do here and they try and almost emulate the same back home, but it doesn't necessarily work because of the culture, so on and so forth.
Yes.
So it's just very, very interesting.
I think that's a great point, the cultural impact of the way we eat in this region, the Middle Eastern dining experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because one thing I could never understand when I first arrived is that the diners wanted everything at the same time, and you're like, how can you have everything at the same time? Start at main course. I mean,
we never had that growing up.
And it was just like
it was everything on the table.
I never. It was always like 1, 2, 3, and that was it. So getting used to it was.
Is that how you
tough.
always ate, like the 1, 2, 3 part, even at home?
Even at home.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, we like everything on the table at the same time. I think it's a very Arab, Asian influence of that's how our culture is, that your table should always be full.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is that I understood that when it comes to sort of the European and then the sort of Middle Eastern home hospitality, let's say, if you're hosting somebody in Europe, you'd obviously have your starter, whatever it may be, take that away, and then you have your main course. Whereas the Middle Eastern hospitality, which of course I 100% love, is that you have to show as much on the table as possible. And even if your guest is like overly stuffed, you're like, no, please, there's more. I've got another 10 sweets.
Yes.
You know? So,
if you don't overfeed, you're not a good mother or grandmother. Like that's isn't that normal?
no, but I think it's amazing.
Yeah, this is how we grew up. It was always about a regular lunch was you need to have 3 dishes on the table.
Right. At the same time.
Yes. It was very normal. So the Middle Eastern, Indian hospitalities, I think, sort of merged there, right? It's the same concept of how we grew up. It was very, family around the table. We're going to have as many dishes as we possibly can. If somebody was visiting, even if it was like 2 people, we used to have a table full of stuff. It was everything from sides to desserts to mains to starters, everything mixed together. There would be 10 to 12 dishes on the table, because that was the way of showing love and hospitality to your guests.
Right.
And I love that, because I think that's inculcated in a lot of the restaurants that have been driven from local cultures. I mean, you're now with Reba.
Yes.
Congratulations on the bib.
Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing.
You.
So that is driven from that sort of Middle Eastern hospitality culture, right?
Absolutely. Now, the other one I wanted to sort of get your take on, of course, we've had Liam on the show, and he spoke about the experience at the Alchemist. I want to get your take on it, because I think it's one of the restaurants that is definitely on my bucket list to go and visit. And I really want to sort of, because I want to understand it from a chef's point of view. But for you, how was that experience?
I first had Chef Rasmus Monk's food back in 2016 at an event in Copenhagen. There was the chefs from Disfrutar were cooking there, Rasmus was cooking there. It was amazing.
What a mix!
Oh,
those two. Wow.
We had Rene. We had another event at Geranium where it was Rasmus and Espen from Maimo in Sweden, and then Eniko from Azormendi in Basque Country. It was amazing. So this event,
a couple of just small guys,
no.
but
actually Zoe and I went for this event together. It wasn't like we paid for our tickets and we got like these experiences because it was, oh my God, when am I ever going to get this chance, right? So I first had Rasmus's cooking then, and I remember the first 2 dishes that I ever tried from him were, one was a skull with brains topped with mealworms and ants. Right, so very memorable, hard-hitting dish. The second one was an ashtray, which had crab in it, but it looked like ash. And at that point, it was a commentary on the social element of what the smoking is doing to your lungs, and would you eat something that looks like ash, but you're still doing it to your body. So it was he started the social commentary early on, right? And this was, I'm saying now, 9 years ago,
right,
when Alchemist 1.0 existed. There was no current Alchemist. So he did the Alchemist 1.0 for a few years after that, and then he shut that down, and he spent, I think, the next 2-3 years building the current version of the Alchemist that exists in Copenhagen. And that opened in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, 2018, 2019, somewhere there. I visited... Yes, actually, 2019, August. It opened in 2019, August. And because I had been following his journey for 3 years, when it opened, I was like, okay, I have to go to this restaurant. So in 2019, December, I planned the ultimate foodie trip for myself. It was just a gift to myself. Took weeks, months of getting everything organized, but it included dinner at Noma, lunch at Geranium, dinner at Alchemist, fly to Norway, lunch at Maimo. So that I had tried to squeeze in France in that trip so I could do all the 3 Michelin stars in Scandinavia in the same trip, but the logistics didn't work out. So my first time at the Alchemist was in 2019, December. And I remember it being a wide range of things. it was uncomfortable, it was provocative, it was mind-blowing. And at the end of all of that, which involved like, okay, this is going to provoke X feeling, this is going to make you disgusted, this is going to make you uncomfortable, but this is going to be talking about this social impact, and everything. It's not a dinner, it's a life experience.
Okay.
Right. And at the end of that, I walked out with my mind absolutely blown because I didn't know what hit me. It was 6 hours. I sucked some jelly from a silicone tongue, and you're going to use this in the cut, aren't you? I had the best omelette of my life. I had, and then, I mean, there are 50 impressions. They don't call it courses, they call it impressions. And at the end of all of this, I was just, okay, I'm going to remember each of these things. And the food tasted delicious, but I'm not going to be thinking about the food when I walk out. I'm going to be thinking about everything that contributed to this experience while walking out. So that was my first time. And then 2023 is when Liam and I went back. That was driven more by Noma, because Noma announced that they're shutting down, which I think they're finally doing this year, or the last seasons. So I had tried Noma 1.0, which was no seasonal tasting menus. It was just Noma. And then I had tried the game season at Noma when I went in 2019, which was phenomenal. And so I wanted to try the vegetable season before they shut down. So it was driven from that. And somehow I managed to get a reservation. And Liam was like, never going to miss this once in a lifetime opportunity. Let's go. So we went for literally a day and a half to Copenhagen to just eat. And so we booked Noma vegetable season. Again, redid the whole itinerary, geranium for lunch, and then alchemist for dinner. And this time, so there were dishes that I remember from last time that he evolved. And there was this whole range of new dishes that just went, wow, I can't believe you made this. There was a space bread that was made in collaboration with NASA to basically feed the astronauts in space. And then because it was being served on Earth, it had caviar on it. And one of the other dishes was butterflies. And like we had butterflies, like actual butterflies in our stomach. And again, and Liam would have told you this, when you walk out of that experience, it's not just the food that has impacted you, it's everything else. The dome that you're sitting in for the major part of the experience, it's absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous. And the visuals keep changing throughout the experience. And they complement what is on your plate. And the storytelling is just the perfect amount for me, because I do enjoy that element of, okay, why is there a chicken leg inside a cage, right? Which is on the social commentary of how chickens are raised. And so what I think Rasmus is trying to do is not just create a dining experience, although I have to emphasize it does taste delicious. He is trying to create an experience that touches upon every single aspect of your life from a social perspective. So one of the dishes is related to Big Brother, 1984 Orwell, where the whole dome turns into eyes that are looking at you, and it ties into how, there is no privacy, there's so much surveillance, which is very real, very connected to you as a person. It is happening, right? Every single day. You know how much your phone listens, or your laptop listens, or watches, right? And so he's taking those things that are impacting us on a daily basis and on the larger scenario, and converting them to an experience that is on the plate, in the visuals, in the music, from all touch points. And for me, it's a multi-sensory experience that is beyond dining.
So it left its mark on you?
Oh, multiple times, yes. I've been very lucky and very fortunate that I got the experience multiple times, but I would go back. I would definitely go back again to try what he's done next.
But then it leads me on to the point, and certainly I've seen this, but I'd like to get your take on it. Do you think nowadays, let's say hospitality staff, whether it's general managers, waiters, chefs, if Rasmus is doing all of this and he's sort of telling a story, where does, in your opinion, wellness of the team come into play when it comes to running such a restaurant like that, or whether it's here in Dubai? Do you think people are being treated fairly? Because I'll ask you that question because when it comes to making one specific dish, there is a huge amount of labor behind it. Absolutely. Huge amount. And we know that, us chefs are psychos and we work in stupid hours, right? But at some point, something's got to give. Have you seen that change here or globally? Because I know you travel a lot and you visit various different kitchens.
I think wellness should come at the top of it. However, your industry is a relentless one, right? I respect chefs and people who work in hospitality, and which is why I don't think I've ever written a terribly bad review in my life, is because it's incredibly hard to do what you guys do. And it's, at some point, it used to be a thankless job. Now, obviously, we have a lot of awards and accolades that celebrate you guys, as we should. But it's incredibly hard to do what you do. And I think wellness should come at the top of it, although it hasn't for the longest time. Yep. Right. Now the narrative is shifting. You'll see all these whistleblower books, articles that have been written about the mistreatment in kitchens, and people are being held responsible for how they have treated their staff in the kitchens. Not all of them, obviously, but it goes to, how all the other movements have started. And I think this will bring about a positive change. I have seen it slowly happen. Marmaletta from Abu Dhabi that came on the 50 best list. They do 5 days a week and, 5 hours a day. And I love that they're setting that precedent, because I was talking to Raj and I told him, I really respect that you are taking this as a business owner. It's difficult. You know this. You're working with restaurants for a long time. It's hard to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a hard stand and I'm going to only be open for 5 hours a day and closed for 2 days a week. And yes, I'm going to let people line up. But he's doing that, part of which impacts the team, or I think a lot of it impacts the team. If you have to work there for whatever, 7 hours, 9 hours a day, that's a normal office job that everybody else does. You don't have to spend 10 hours, 14 hours on your feet, as most hospitality, requires you to do. This is more of, we're going to do this as a business that also cares about the employees, that also cares about the product, that also cares about all of these things. So I think that change is starting. I don't think it's going to be quick, and I don't think it's going to be immediate.
Sure.
And I don't think it's going to be for everyone.
Yeah. Because
at the end of the day, you're still going to look at P&L. And that does matter in the long-term sustenance of your business. It's about finding that balance and where to say, okay, where can I add that extra shift with another employee instead of making one employee do a long shift, right? And we look at this from our business perspective as well when we're thinking about shifts and, employee wellness, and you need a break. But for you guys, it's constant and it's ongoing and it doesn't stop. And I see that burnout in a lot of my friends who are chefs, who work in hospitality, not even directly related to service, just hospitality as a whole, even operations, etc. I see that burnout. And I think that change is required, because then how are you going to motivate the next generation of people to join your industry? Because this was the issue faced in the US and I think a little bit in the UAE after COVID. The new generation didn't want to go into this role, and the people who were in these roles got to chill and calm down their nerves during the COVID pandemic, and then they didn't want to go back to it. And the bear is a great representation of that, right? Like when you see Karmi flipping out and all of those things happening in the show, you're like, I know this has happened with a lot of people, right? And it's true to a large extent. And the breakdowns and the burnouts, and they start impacting you at some point. So yes, the wellness needs to come. It's just a matter of how people embrace it. And people are generally very resistant to change. So
very true. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the culture and the narrative is absolutely changing. We have 3 million collaborations with chefs in restaurants nowadays. And I think everybody is, taking sort of examples and precedents from each other. They're working with different teams. Yep. So they're all learning from each other, which is amazing. Now, with the evolution of dining, how proud are you of the city and the UAE in terms of that evolution?
This makes me so happy. I'm a cheerleader. I've been telling people for Trescent Studio, when it opened early days, when it was in the back kitchen of Trescent, whenever
Which I love that space, by the way.
I know. And then, the Avatara has come out of that, and now Nonaverse is there. I love that they use that as a little experimentation project to see whether it's going to do well. It's a great go-to-market strategy. I'm in tech, right? So I think of it from, this is like the beta testing phase. You do it without dedicating your time and money to a new space or building a new space, but you get to test it in this environment that you know and you're comfortable with. And if it works, you get to take it out and give it its own space, which they did with 2 successful restaurants, both of which have Michelin stars, right? So when Trescent Studio first started, that was my, epitome of this is Dubai's finest dining experience. I still think it's one of my favorite experiences in the world, not only just Dubai. And it's funny, I was telling my friend I'm going to be on the show last night, and he said, yeah, you're obviously going to talk about Himanshu and Trescent Studio, aren't you? I was like, yes, because Dubai-born, Indian roots, they have all my heart. But when they first started, and I used to travel and meet these international diners and tell them, you should come to Dubai, we have this amazing experiences. And this particular experience that you have to come for, people didn't believe me because they had a perception of Dubai that existed in their minds. That was more about the glitz and glamour and not really a fine dining experience that is going to leave a mark, right? Because these are people who are traveling the world in search of these amazing experiences. And in the last 3 years, when people finally started coming and seeing that, okay, we've been talking about this for a long time, but yes, this is legitimate. That has been absolutely amazing to see, because every time somebody messages me saying, loved going to Trescent Studio, or any of my recommendations, the places that I've been talking about for years, I feel pride and joy in this city and the chefs and the restaurants. And that's very exciting for me because it took a long time to get here.
I did a stage at Miami in 2017, and one of the chefs was like, what are you doing in Dubai? What are you going to learn there? And it was really interesting. And at the time I was like, hold your horses, my friend. Hold your horses.
It's coming.
So, and the funny thing is that you get all of the European chefs now coming here.
I know.
Hashtag just saying,
Hashtag I told you so.
Yeah. But I think, we are just like Dubai. The food scene and the chefs, we are pushing at a speed of 300 miles an hour.
It's amazing.
And it is incredible. I think it is incredible, and people are always saying that. Well, is it going to slow down? Is it not? We're not going to slow down.
No, definitely not.
It's going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
It's just going to go in phases, but I think it'll come down to the experiences that truly matter and that truly leave a mark.
Yeah.
Because there will be the expansion, because now it's exciting to be here, and then there will be the sort of filter down that's going to happen in a couple of years' time. And then it's going to come down to, okay, there is a restaurant that exists because it has an audience for what it delivers.
Right.
And that's going to be the outcome of this. So yes, we're going to continue having great experiences. We're going to also continue having the growth of the mass concepts that work with people. And it's going to be hand in hand. I think Faye mentioned this as well, right? So there's homegrown that are going to continue coming up because now we have a platform for them to come up. And there's going to be the international chains that are still going to keep coming in because we have a market for it.
But you yourself are an ambassador for places like, or organizations rather, such as the Luminary Set,
yes,
for example, and Host Milano. Now, you must talk to a lot of different, I would say, professional foodies or professional travelers. Now, also, isn't it amazing to have people like Himanshu and all these other chefs that are from here go to these international conventions and actually talk about what we do? Because you must see it yourself.
Yes, and Himanshu spoke, there are two sides to this. One is our chefs going out, speaking at these international conventions and collaborating with international chefs in their home grounds. And two is these international conventions coming to us. And that sort of mix has been hyper growth for the F&B industry in the Middle East, I think, right? So when Himanshu goes to Ein Proset and cooks with a chef from Italy and cooks with, it's amazing to see, because one is, this is our talent that is coming out on the global stage. And it is so exciting. And then the other side of it is you're finally learning what our third culture cooking looks like, right? Which I think Kelvin at Jones is trying to do as well.
Absolutely.
Push up the third culture. But I think that's a whole element in itself, is when you're in Dubai, but you're cooking another cuisine, but you come from that background, what does that look like on a plate? Which is what Himanshu is doing.
Yeah.
Right. Indian cuisine, Dubai born. He has his touches of the international influences, but it's still Indian cuisine at its core, but it's advanced. So I think that is very exciting as a region, because these influences could not have existed to this extent in any other city in the world, I believe, right? Because you have everybody here. You have people from Europe, from Middle East, from Asia, from the entire Asian subcontinent, from UK, from the US. And when you bring all of that in a very, very tiny city, you are bound to learn or get influenced to put something on your plate that you wouldn't have thought of before, right? And that's what's giving birth and growth to this sort of third cultural level of cooking.
But at the same time, Pallavi, you have also absolutely placed the UAE, on the world stage, because you're writing for some rather large magazines. You're on Etihad. You're in a lot of spaces now. Previously, you said you were writing from a very, very young age, and you're involved in all of these different organizations as well as writing. How does it make you feel like you've contributed towards letting the world know how incredible we are here?
I think you're seeing now that this has happened because there is an outcome to, there's a published article, or there's a brand ambassadorship with Host Milano, or the Luminary set, or World of Mouth expert, or Chef's TV expert, or any of those things. I've been trying to do it for a long time, but it hasn't been about who else is validating it. Right now it's, these people are like, we'd like to have you as the local expert, which I'm really, really grateful for, the opportunity to further push the Middle East as a region on the global gastronomic stage.
Right.
But I've been pushing it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just not been public, right? In theory. And so it makes me, because for me, I have never been directly involved with any of these restaurants, right? From a work perspective.
Okay.
And at some point, I separated the food part of life from my work part of life, because I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. And I want to continue doing it without any expectations, where I can choose if I want to write. I can choose if I want to be an expert or collaborate with XYZ event or platform. I can choose all of those things because I have nothing invested in the industry except my passion. So I get to now do it on a stage that is much larger than I could do it before, which I really appreciate. But I don't think, even if these platforms weren't there, that I would stop doing it.
But then one thing I find quite funny is also some of the stories that I've heard from some of your colleagues in the same space. Because I want to understand from your point of view, you get invited a lot to go to different restaurants globally, right? Now, in your opinion, what are the sort of things that, when the media gets invited to a restaurant, and the chefs know that the media is coming, the restaurant know, everyone, PR, the in-house marketing team, you name it, we've invited a certain individual to come and dine with us because, it's our turn or our time to show off, and they're going to sing about it, hopefully. What do these places, what's the one thing that they keep getting wrong? Because we know what they're getting right. But what's the most common thing that you've faced in your experience when you're going out with your certain groups, whether it's here or whether it's internationally?
I'm going to have to think about that one.
I'll give you an example. Again, one of the people who we had on here who is in your space, they had an experience where everybody knew they were coming, but service was horrendous. food was horrendous. They told him that the food was horrendous. Chef didn't come out, and then basically they didn't publish an article or didn't post about it. And then the PR came back and said, well, why didn't you post about it? Well, we told you because it was horrendous.
So this, Liam and I have discussed this aspect of it, is we always set expectations before going. Anyway.
In what way?
In the way that, what do you want out of this?
So
why are you inviting it? Straight up.
So you will ask that?
The PR person.
Okay, got you.
Yes, straight up to say, what do you expect out of this if you're inviting me? And if it is a publication or posts or XYZ guarantee, we will say, okay, we can post on our own platforms maybe, based on the, I always say based on the experience.
Ah, love that. Okay.
I actually just sent this response to somebody. It's always based on the experience because I can tell you what I'm going to do on my social platforms. And then publication, I can never guarantee because it's a pitch, right? So if my editor goes for it, yes. If my editor or if it doesn't get commissioned, it's not going to happen. But I can give you XYZ guaranteed on my platforms based on your, based on the experience that your team provides us with. However, any other publications, we will, if relevant, we will pitch to. We tend to set that expectation straight in the beginning before doing the trip or before doing the invite or any of these things. Because I have gone back, Liam has gone back after many meals to say, okay, I'm just going to do you the favor of not posting about you because...
Right.
But the one thing that both of us agree on, and Courtney does as well, we'd much rather give the feedback directly to the restaurant or the PR person if they're open to it than publicly shame them.
Got you.
Because it's a hard, again, it comes back to it's a hard job.
Yes.
Like, I think Liam wrote that in our one of our Substacks. Chefing is hard, right? And we cannot imagine what it is like being in the kitchen for 10, 14 hours a day, and we don't get to, diss on your job just because we have an opinion.
Okay.
If you're willing to take the feedback, we're happy to give it to you. It'll come to you in like a proper organized structure. All three of us do this.
Yeah.
But we're not going to publicly go and bash you on social media or something like that.
I'll ask you the same question for chefs. So, and what I mean by that is that things that you see or taste on plates that could be better or tweaked?
I think there are chefs that are open to feedback and there are chefs that are not. And I mean, that's again normal. Not everybody likes to be told how to do their job or what we think is wrong with their output. But I think that also applies to every industry on the planet, right? So it comes back to whether or not you're open to feedback.
Yes.
Criticism is another angle of feedback, but feedback as a whole.
Sure.
Right, just that category. And the one thing that I learned actually back in startup days was that feedback is very, very important to defining who you can be as a person going forward. So that was inculcated in the way I started working, is feedback is important. So I look at it from a give and take perspective. Till date, my current job as well, my boss and I like to give each other feedback. My team and I like to give each other feedback. And it goes both ways. It's not that it's going to be a one-sided approach to I'm telling you how to do this, and that is how you have to do it, right? And that goes to the kitchen as a chef. Are you willing to take feedback from somebody who is maybe not technically as evolved as you are? Because I have not gone to culinary school or worked in a kitchen, so I'm not technically evolved. But do you respect the experiences that we've had that may contribute to some valuable feedback that could help in the output of what you do?
Sure.
I will come back to Himanshu, who's the biggest person for this. He has been taking feedback since day one. Since day one, right? He used to sit with me for hours like, okay, let's go. What about this? What about this? What about... He still does it. He's number 13 in the world, number 2 in MENA's 50 best and 2 Michelin stars. He doesn't have to do it, but he does. And that's how he keeps getting better. Now, whether he takes it and implements it is up to him. It does... I may or may not know the technical ability of a dish. I can give him only objective feedback on the outcome of the dish. So he may take that feedback and improve the dish on a back-end perspective or not, or change it a little bit. But that's up to him. The fact that he's willing to listen is a step in itself.
Yeah. Look, 2 points, Pallavi. That's the thing, is that I think it's very important is when I'm talking about the feedback, it's about people like yourself, who is a professional diner. You've been to some of the best places in the world, so you understand gastronomy. Not only that, you understand high-end Formula One gastronomy. Let's put it that way, right? So to get feedback from somebody as yourself, for me, is crucial, because you understand the world of high-end fine dining, and you hang out with these other diners who can potentially make an impact on the business, right? Number one. Number two, so Himanshu is a very good friend of mine, right? And I'm always extremely proud of everything that he does, because I know how hard he's worked for it. Now, the one thing that I really hate about him, which is every time I'm dining at his restaurant, he'll just be like, tell me what's going on, tell me what's wrong. And I'm just like, Himanshu, it was amazing. And he was like, no,
everything can't be perfect.
From a chef, and I'm just Himanshu, I just want to chill. I'm enjoying, man. I'm enjoying. It's amazing. And he would just be like, no, I'm going to text you tomorrow. No. But I also love him and respect him for it, because he wouldn't have got to where he is today had he not taken that feedback and taken it graciously.
Yes.
And I think a lot of chefs, can learn a thing or two from what he does.
I agree. Not everybody's open to that feedback. And where we know we're not going to get the right sort of response if we give feedback, we don't.
Right.
And there are times where I will write feedback to the team as like proper organized paragraphs, service, food, etc. And they'll not respond. I did my part.
Okay.
Right. But they don't pass it on to the restaurant team.
Silence.
They don't. And it's fine. It's fine. Again, it comes back to you don't have to take everything I say, and everybody's not open to taking everything that we might have to say. But I do it from the perspective of I really want to see you succeed.
And you've taken the time, also something that you cannot get back. You've taken the time to go to the place, have the experience, and then separately take the time to then write. Guys, these are the things that you do great. These are the things that you could do a little bit better. So
keep
on and so
doing,
forth.
stop doing, start doing.
Right.
Always. Just basic level. But
okay, fair enough. Now, Pallavi, from your experiences and everything that you've seen within the current landscape in the MENA region, what are your predictions? What would you like to see more? What would you like to see happen in the future here?
Personality. And you're seeing that very slowly shift is chef's personality on a plate in restaurants. I recently went to Manau with Abraj Khatwani of the Yellow Monkey fame, and Urfali just opened up the Thai-inspired restaurant. It's Thai-inspired. It's not traditional Thai. Right? The food. And you got to see the personality on the plate, which is, it's non-licensed, but all the dishes pack a flavor and a punch.
Okay.
But they're not something that, and I wrote this, and I told him this, it doesn't remind me of a dish that I've had in Thailand, but it makes me miss Bangkok.
Oh, wow.
So, and that is a very, very, interesting output for me is, okay, I can see what you did there. The flavor came, but it does not seem like anything that I've already had. And for me, that personality of the chef on a plate is so important going forward.
Super interesting.
Yeah. Did you try Manau yet?
Not yet.
That's the one.
I think you're the third or fourth person who's told me about it.
Yeah. And then I'm excited to go to Gerbu as well, which is so many levels of this Emirati inspiration, the setup, the dishes, Chef Sahar's food and Chef Anil's food. It's that personality. Yeah. I think more and more places are bringing personality to the plate, and I want to see more of that happen.
Yeah, I agree. So then, Pallavi, we've come to the quick fire questions. All right. First thing, you're not a chef, but I have to ask, what's your favorite ingredient?
I'm Indian, so garam masala.
All right. Boom. Sweet or sour?
Sour first.
Oh, okay. Biryani or paella?
Biryani. Paella is just Spanish biryani.
You heard that here, folks. It's
joking.
just
no disrespect to all the people in Valencia. No, you guys did the paella right.
Pickled or spicy?
Both.
Both. All right.
Put your hands together.
All right. Pani puri or huri kebab?
How could you? It's like Sophie's choice. I'm not choosing. Not choosing.
All right. Shawarma or masala dosa?
Oh, this is funny. I do like South Indian food, but shawarma is the one thing that I have before leaving the country, before I travel, and after coming back.
Oh,
I'm a Dubai kid through and through.
good to know. Now, as of this date, as of right now, for you, what are your top 3 favorite cuisines to eat?
Indian, just flavor. Japanese, I really, really enjoy because I went to Japan, not the commercialized version of it, but Japan. I think my flavors are very Asian driven, and then Thai because it brings all the spices to the table. I think we have a kind, right? I cannot define any other European cuisine with the same amount of flavor.
Yes.
Those. So all
Maybe
Asian.
paella.
It's nice. I really enjoy Spanish food. I do enjoy going to Spain, but it wouldn't be something that I'm craving.
Yes, yeah, I'm with
right,
you.
if you know what I mean. So I would crave a butter chicken.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Who are your top 3 culinary heroes? And they don't necessarily need to be chefs.
Culinary heroes. What does that entail?
It could be family. It could be whoever. Could be the dean. The
Jacques
culinary,
Torres, yes.
right?
I want to learn how to make desserts from him of pastry. I would say there was a childhood that phase. So my dad, obviously, that's level 1. Dad and brother, I would put at the same level because they've sort of driven my journey into food to begin with.
Yeah.
And then Jacques Torres, just because that was like one of my first memories. And then all 3 of them from MasterChef Australia that defined, that interest or that pushed that interest into food. I do have a lot of people in culinary that I respect and I love, and I wish I could name them all, but these were the people who sort of initiated that journey into what I'm doing today, and I really respect them for that.
And that's what this is about.
Yes.
It's about you and who elevated you or pushed you towards
exactly.
that, right?
Yes.
So.
There are people who have enabled it further and helped along the way and sort of made that journey more fruitful. But yeah, I would say these 3.
Now, throughout the dining landscape, whether it's here, globally, in the US, wherever, what would you say has been your funniest ever restaurant or kitchen incident that you've seen or been involved in?
Been involved in? I don't think I've been involved in anything. Does it have to be funny?
It can be whatever you want to do.
So, there are 2 experiences. One is a good one is a not so.
Okay.
Okay. So one is I was at a restaurant in the US, very high caliber. I won't name the restaurant, but when I was having the meal, I was dining solo, as I do a lot of the times, and I'm trying to talk to the service team.
Okay.
And they're just blank, right? Like they're terrified of talking to me or smiling.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, but can you smile? Like, I actually asked my sommelier, can you smile, please? I just joked. And so that I realized was a very pristinely run kitchen, very strict, very to the T, very...
regimented.
Very regimented. And that made me uncomfortable.
Oh.
They had great food.
Right.
It just, as a service experience, made me uncomfortable. And I will come back to a question that I always ask people. Would you go back to the food or for the service? If you had amazing food, but average or below service, would you go back?
Yeah, no.
Right? And most people say, oh, it's food. And then they think about it. They're like, no, but if they made me feel bad, I wouldn't go back.
Yes.
Right. So it does matter. And so that was the most it was the best and most uncomfortable dining experience. It was like, oh, this food is great, but why? Why are you so stiff? Why aren't you talking to me? Can you please talk to me?
Wow.
And while serving me a dish, can you just talk?
They have a star?
More.
Okay. Interesting.
I will tell you offline.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
But that's from the weird perspective, discomfort perspective.
That is weird.
It is, right? They just seem scared.
A restaurant should be one of the most welcoming places,
yes.
especially when you've got diners, anyway.
Yeah, they just seem scared, and you could see that, right? And the other experience that I really enjoyed was the first time I went to Blue Hill Farm in, near New York. He now has 2 stars, Dan Barber. Mm-hmm. And it was... we were in the dining room. We had a few of our dishes there. They do obviously research on each of their diners before they come in. My partner and I, or my dining partner and I, both of us enjoy dining together. And we did a very foodie-centric trip to New York. And so I think they looked at our socials and what we've written and stuff like that. So for one of the experiences, they took us into the kitchen where they had set up a table for us to have this one dish. And the dish was also, the story behind the dish was great. They broke 2 eggs. One was from chicken that had regular feed, and then one was from a chicken that had been fed peppercorn, and the egg was darker, or the yolk was darker orange, had a hint of that peppercorn spice, and then one was yellow. The story behind that was I'm shortening it for your benefit, but basically it was, apparently they had, the Blue Hill Farm has the full farm, right? So apparently some chickens ran loose and ended up eating the peppercorn. And what they figured out with that was that when they eat the peppercorn, because they don't have taste buds, they don't feel the spice, they can eat the peppercorn without any issues. However, it then impacts the yolk of the eggs that they lay. So the yolk is darker, has that hint of peppercorn spice that comes into it, and it is different from the regular yellow yolk of their regular feed. So they basically broke both of these eggs in front of us in 2 different pans and cooked them so we could try the difference. And Dan Barber came and spoke to us about it. I think that was the nicest kitchen experience I had, because it's not like we told them we want to do a kitchen tour. It's not like it was, a question or
right.
It was more of, okay, we've researched you, we think you would like this, because everybody had that course or one of the courses in a different area of the restaurant. So one 2 tables had it on the patio, on the terrace. Some people had it in the farm. So everybody had a different version of that dish, but we had it in the kitchen.
That's cool.
So I think that was pretty cool.
That's really nice. Yeah. And Dan Barber also, he's just another a legend of a chef, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So I'll, if you have time, I can tell you one thing that I see with the 3 kinds of chefs that have sort of created this massive transformation in the gastronomy industry, right? One is with Adria, with El Bulli.
Yeah.
He started on the technique front, which is the foremost level of cooking, right? It's the most outward level of, this is before it comes on your plate, I'm going to work on the technique. And he sort of revolutionized the industry with it. And you still see the learnings from that echo through restaurant kitchens throughout the world, in some of the best restaurant kitchens throughout the world. So that was with Adria. And then came Noma, which went into foraging and fermentation. So it wasn't about the technique. It was about finding the ingredients, what is available in nature, and bringing them to the forefront, and how to keep this produce or this, this ingredient going on for a long time, and what can we do with it, and how can we bring it to the plate. So this was one step before the technological part that Adria did. It came with René Redzepi at Noma. And then I think what Dan Barber did is take it a step before. So it wasn't about finding what's growing, it's about growing things. One of the dishes was an avocado squash, because he cross-germinated avocado and squash, right? So he's changing the way you create or find ingredients at the core of the farming part of it, not at the technical or at the dish part of it, right? And so this, if you look at all three of them, I think they have revolutionized the way gastronomy works around the world, and you will see the impact of this across kitchens. So when you see farm to table, that is a lot of what Noma's done, right? Foraging and farm to table. And then I don't think anybody's doing what Dan Barber is doing, changing the base core of that ingredient.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal, to be honest.
Yeah.
Really incredible. What advice would you give to any up-and-coming food writers?
I think a lot of people get into this from I want to be taken seriously / I want to be famous / I want to be invited / it's from a very personal gain perspective. The new ones specifically, that's how people are getting into it now, because they look at the charm of, oh, this person gets invited everywhere, so I want to be a food writer, right? And I don't think that's the right perspective or the right objective to get into something. If you enjoy writing, right? If your writing is going to have a personality, if you have something to say that you think is valuable, not just a copy paste of what everybody else is saying for the sake of what you want to gain out of it, then get into it. Don't do it for the charm or the gains that you think you're going to get out of it. Do it if you really actually want to do it.
What advice would you give to a 16-year-old Pallavi?
Keep going. I now write myself letters for the future because I really can't believe at times the life that I'm living. I'm so grateful. I really appreciate it. I respect that the people that I looked up to in a lot of ways, I get to now meet them and talk to them and, engage with them. And it just makes me feel so incredibly lucky.
Now, Pallavi, if people wanted to get hold of you through social media, what are the best means?
Instagram, Pallavi Sangtani. That's the easiest way.
Okay, done. Yeah. So I'll put everything in the show notes. Now, Pallavi, I just wanted to say it's been amazing to have you in the show because it's been really extensive and we've been wanting to get you in for such a long time. And really, I think you've made a huge difference in the community here and internationally, but specifically singing the praises of what we do. So as a chef, I want to say thank you very, very much for doing that. Please don't stop because you're quite good at it. Please don't stop. And
thank you.
Really, on behalf of the Chef JKP podcast, thank you very much for taking the time to be here and really looking forward to what your next chapter and next seasons are going to be.
Thank you so much, Chef. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
What a fascinating conversation. If you ever thought food writing was just about eating and typing, then think again. The level of detail, research, and storytelling that goes into each piece is next level. Like crafting a dish. Pallavi doesn't just write about food. She also paints a picture with her words, bringing these dishes to life. Whether it's a Michelin-starred masterpiece or the perfect roadside falafel, which we all love, right? The way she bridges a gap between luxury and dining, plus street food, is something I truly admire. I have a whole new appreciation for the role food writers play in shaping the way we experience restaurants, travel, and culture. A massive thank you to Pallavi for sharing her journey, her insights, her passion for storytelling, and of course, above all, the way she really understands dining. Now, it's conversations like this that can really open our minds and think about the entire ecosystem of hospitality. Doesn't matter if you're a chef, waitress, restaurateur, food writer, you would have been able to learn something completely new today. If you want to see more of what Pallavi is doing, as always, I'll place all of the details in the show notes. Now, if this episode gave you a new perspective, do me a favor and share it with someone who loves food, travel, or just great conversations. Don't forget, please gang, don't forget, press that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. As well as we are also on YouTube, so you can check out all the incredible episodes we have, over 100. Apart from that, a big fat thank you to you for listening or watching till the end. you absolute legend. Until next time, food is memories.